Hey everybody, welcome to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. We are coming to you as always courtesy of our broadcasting partner, moretalk.tv. Joining me today, I'm honored to welcome Joyce Keller. Joyce is an American television and radio host, an author, and a psychic medium. She has hosted a live radio show since 1989 and is featured in both editions of the book 100 Top Psychics in America. She's also authored 7 international best-selling books, including the Angel series books, 7 Steps to Heaven, Calling All Angels, and the Complete Book of Numerology. Her latest book, out now, is published by a.r.e. Press and is titled Why Am I Here? A Concise Guide to Your Purpose and Potential. It includes valuable information that will help you, as the reader, to better help get connected with your angelic guides, astrology, karmic patterns, Akashic records, and so much more. Things that are important aspects of yourself that'll be signs towards your true purpose. Her website is joycekeller.com. Joyce, thank you so much for being with us. Stay on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is terrific. I'm very excited, and I look forward to the time we're going to be together now. This is great.
Excellent. Me too. Joyce, I wanted to ask a first question of how did you, I know you've been kind of doing your radio show and an author for so long. How did you get introduced to the Cayce material and get involved with the a.r.e?
Well, I hate to tell you, I go back so long. There was only one book out about Cayce when I first came across his work, and there was just one book by Jeff Stern, which was There Is a River. I mean, now there are thousands, I'm guessing thousands of books that have written or referred to Cayce work one way or another. But at the time I discovered it, the New York Times had, I think, a Sunday book review. I don't want to tell you how many years ago this was. I'm guessing maybe 20 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago. My children were really little. I was reading the New York Times one Sunday, and they had this introduction to Edgar Cayce, and Jeff Stern had come out with this book called There Is a River. And I went to my local library, and I asked for a book by Edgar Cayce. And the librarian, it was a very small library, she said, no, it's not Cayce, it's Cayce. Well, of course, everyone knows that now. But at that time, when I just saw C-A-Y-C-E, I figured it's Cayce. But that just tells you how far back I go with it. And, of course, I was beyond enraptured with There Is a River. It was just the most incredible book. And then I wanted more. And the next book I found was Gina Sermonara's book. I'm forgetting the title, but Gina wrote an incredible book, which I think came out in the early 80s, if I'm correct about that, also about Cayce. And do you have any, I can look it up while we're speaking, but that was Gina Sermonara, who was one of the early Cayce pioneers, and she was just really terrific. And then after that, quite a few followed. But in answer to your question, I go way back, and certainly the Cayce teachings have changed my life because they were just so phenomenal. Then, of course, I immediately had to run to Virginia Beach and find out just what his center was like. At that point, it was opposite the beach, and Marshall's Hotel or Motel was the only thing that was there. Now I understand it's totally different. But at the time that I went in the 80s, it was a big old white mansion and facing the open beach. And my children were very little at that time. My husband and I would take turns. One of us would stay at the beach with the children. The other one would go into the Cayce Center, and it was terrific. So we did that, and that was our first introduction to Cayce. And then I started doing a lot of radio and TV after that, and of course I always brought the Cayce teachings into it because I said, this is the most phenomenal information ever, and it certainly has been. It has stood the test of time, and I've never failed to beat the drum about Cayce and his work. So thank you for asking me that question, Brent. I really appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you for sharing this wonderful story. I love to hear people who really have a rich history with the a.r.e. For me, it's been, at least in this lifetime, it's been a fairly new introduction, I'd say, the past 10 years or so. So it's great to hear, stories from the times of the past, because the a.r.e. has really evolved over the past few decades, and it's been, really great to see that happening and to be a part of it. So this kind of brings us full circle, though, Joyce. I really want to talk about your new book, because I think there's going to be a lot of topics and questions answered for our readers and our listeners out there. This newest book is published by the a.r.e. Press with the a.r.e. here. It's called Why Am I Here? And from what I understand, Joyce, this is kind of a guide to your purpose and potential. It's finding out why you individually are here, and also what the greater purpose is. Can you give us a little bit about kind of how this book came about and what it means to you?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for asking that. That's a great question. But before I answer that question, Brett, I wanted to just say one thing, that I so indoctrinated, my husband and I so indoctrinated our children in the Cayce teachings that even though my son and daughter were just little at the time that we first went to Virginia Beach and were there a lot at the Cayce Center, my son grew up to be New York City's Edgar Cayce, a.r.e. chiropractic physician. So he's the New York City a.r.e. chiropractor. So I'm very proud about that. My daughter is also an author, and she co-authors books and writes about Cayce also. So
wow, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
I wanted to say that up front. Now, you asked me, I believe, about the book. What did you ask me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how did this book come about? What was the process? Where did the original idea come from? How did you kind of decide to go with the a.r.e.? And also, what's contained within the book? What can your readers expect to get from it?
It's a terrific question also. And I know you're thinking of these questions all by yourself, because I don't think anybody prompted you, and this is all great. Well, I've been doing radio so long and hopefully helping people for so many years, and what it really comes down to, Brenton, anything could be happening on the planet or anywhere, people really want to know the purpose of their birth. Why are they here? What are they here for? You have like 80, 90, 100 years. What are we supposed to be doing? What's the purpose of our birth? Do we have soulmates? Is there such a thing as soulmates? Why don't we have more money? When am I moving? Well, that's what the book is. It's not a book about theory. It has some theory in it, of course, about the basics of life, and from my viewpoint, and what I've learned in this incarnation, maybe others. But it mostly gives you the ability to look up your own birthday from many different angles and to find out many things about yourself. You can actually use it as a reference book. And you asked me what brought it to this point, because one thing I've learned from doing so many years of radio, people call into the show, and I usually say, well, let's have a more generic topic today. Let's talk about something that affects all of us, rather than having it so listener-focused, like, when am I getting a job? That's listener-focused. But they ultimately come down to asking, where is their soulmate? Where is their job? Why am I here? What's going on? So that's what I do primarily, and that's always fun. I try to make it as helpful as possible. So that's what's in the book, and that's how it evolved, because I know that's what people want. So you can hand them any kind of alternative information, which people are happy to have, but ultimately it comes down to your own personal issues. I mean, would you agree with that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to ask you. Most of your clients or most of your callers call you in with. I'm sure there's the topics, like you said, that seem to reoccur: soulmates, jobs, things that are going on in the physical world.
Right. You try to steer away from personal problems, because I don't want my shows to be so listener-focused where it's just about when am I getting a car kind of thing, which can be boring. So, but ultimately, people need information about themselves. They need to know why they're here. So that's what I try to address, and I'm so thrilled that a.r.e. gave me this opportunity of writing about soul direction and soul purpose and soulmates. It's all from the soul. And I believe, Brett, before, and by the way, you spell your name Brent, just so we get that correct.
Absolutely.
Is that correct? Yeah. That's Brent. Okay. Just so we know, this is a book that a.r.e. was so wonderful in publishing because it gives people the opportunity of knowing who they are, why they're here. And that's essentially it. It's information on a personal level, but yet it applies to everyone.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, Joyce, personally, a lot of people during the lifetime and, of course, afterwards of Edgar Cayce were really interested in where he went when he gathered his psychic information. I know you talk in your book about the Akashic records, and that's kind of a big topic of discussion when you're diving into this. I'm curious, you've been a practicing psychic for so many years. When somebody asks you that, where do you go to get your source? What is your source? What is your process, I guess? Can you give us a little glimpse into that?
That's a phenomenal question, Brent. Really phenomenal.
Thanks.
Because it's such a complicated answer. We know that Cayce went to the Akashic records, which he describes as a golden hall of records, and he goes on and he describes that so beautifully. I wish I could describe it so well, but I really can't. I would say I think a lot of it is in the pineal gland above the third eye. That's where we carry the soul record from lifetime to lifetime, I believe, in what I've seen. So when I am asked a question, and by the way, not all psychics have access to the Akashic records and your soul record. I think that's a privilege that you gain through service and insight and hopefully purity of purpose. But many people will tell you many different answers to where the soul records are kept, where the Akashic record is or are. And I would say Cayce's right, golden hall of records, but we also know it's pineal above the third eye. So I'd have to say it's both. A lot of people feel it's in the heart chakra, which I don't agree with at all. And I also have real questions about the importance of heart transplants. You're taking the soul record with you and giving it to someone else. It's like I'm laughing because it's such a complicated thing. People say, I'll take the heart, I'll give it to this person, they'll be well again, which is essentially true. But on a karmic level, it's so impossible, it's so difficult to see. You have an enmeshing or a coming together of karma, and guides and angels and God have to really work overtime to make that happen, to make it look normal. But there's a coming together of karma. So I'm sure do you agree with that, or do you understand?
Yeah,
and
that absolutely
feel that's
makes
correct?
sense. And I think the kind of the medical field has shown that throughout your life, you basically imprint on the cells in your body. And so if you were to take that organ and place it in somebody else, that's an imprint. You're taking the soul's imprint and in essence putting it in your body, because the immune system and the nervous system, they keep a document, just like the Akashics keep a metaphysical documentation. Your cells are keeping a very much a physical documentation throughout your life. So I could absolutely see that. And there's, of course, they've shown that when you take someone else's organ and put it in someone else's body, they do experience some interesting side effects.
People suddenly start drinking beer. Or will take on the habits or the beliefs of the person who originally had the organs. All organs, not just the heart, but all organs belong to the person who has them from prior to birth. And you're going to take out a kidney, well, that's fine. You're probably saving someone's life. But understand the karmic implications of that, Brent, right? I mean, what you just said was brilliant and correct. It's an enmeshing, and there has to be a coming together, an agreement on many different levels. So that's a complicated question about organ transplants.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about some of the other topics that you bring to light in your latest book. The book, again, is Why Am I Here? And we'll make sure we give our listeners all the information on when that's coming out. I'm curious, when we talk about karmic patterns and karmic carryover, things like that, we have to talk about past lives, and this is such a topic that Cayce enthusiasts really link to, and they want to know more. And I think it's really driving everybody, is that there's some things in life that you just can't quite explain. What is your personal take on lifetimes, and what proof have you found that we do have maybe more than one lifetime?
Oh, there's really a lot of proof, but you mentioned something. You said there. Just back up a little bit and repeat what you said, because what you what you said, and you brought in two important questions, but I'm kind of forgetting the first one, which is before we talk about proof, if that's at all possible. I certainly will try. But Brent, do you remember what you just said prior to that?
It's there's so many things in our life that we can't explain away. So it just kind of leaves an open-ended question that whether you want to use reincarnation as a way to form a foundation for that or find your answers. There's just a lot of unanswered questions in everyone's life, and I think if you look at it from a more karmic, multi-lifetime perspective, a larger perspective, I think I'm sure you can testify to the fact that really helps people to find purpose, find a reason for what's happening in their life in this lifetime.
That's a terrific question. I think probably one thing that everyone experiences one time or another, or many, many times, is déjà vu. And you don't know what it is. You just know it's happening. You say, my gosh, I know what this is. I've been here before. I'm experiencing this all over again. And then it lasts maybe as long as a heartbeat or a little bit longer. But you know that it really happens. And that's the coming together of possibly not only past life experiences, but also an enmeshing of time. If you can explain, time is very, very hard to explain, but déjà vu is probably the number one, I can't say proof of reincarnation, but let's say it's an indication of something. What complicates it even further, and by the way, most of the world believes in reincarnation. This country is kind of undecided, but the more advanced religions and the older religions, certainly, as you know, do believe in reincarnation. I have an unusual take on reincarnation. I don't believe in it just the way it appears, like you are reborn clearly into a new lifetime. I think it's more like an oversoul structure where different parts of the oversoul come down, and you have a familiarity of what has previously passed, or what we have previously incarnated as. That's not even good English. But it has to do with oversoul structure, and it's the Godhead and different parts coming down and incarnating. And you can call it reincarnation. It's a form of reincarnation. It's not a pure form of reincarnation, but it's an expression of prior incarnations, which is very close to reincarnation. Now, that's a terrible answer. I just gave a really confusing answer to a simple question, but I don't know how to simplify it.
That's okay. We can keep going. We'll keep simplifying things here.
But there are so many little kids, especially, and if you go to the web, you can see there are just thousands of these little kids who say, "Well, we've been here before. We've done this before." Or, you're really, you're not my mother. You're my sister. That lasts until we're usually about 7 years old, and then at the age approximately of 7, there's almost a shutting down or a crystallization of who and what we are. We're kind of locked in, and the thing is that if we could remember past incarnations and have them mesh into this current incarnation, we would absolutely be insane. Yogananda and the greatest teachers who understood about reincarnation said the blinders have to come down between lifetimes or we would absolutely be insane. Now, Brent, may I share something with you that I experienced as a young girl about reincarnation?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, thank you. My dad was a pharmacist at a mental institution on Long Island, and he worked in the pharmacy department, but he usually forgot a sweater or his lunch or something, and my mother would I just had received my driver's license at that time. I was 16. And my mother would say, "Oh, please bring your dad his lunch or his sweater or whatever he needed." But she would always tell me not to walk through the wards, because she said if you walk through the wards, it's going to be very upsetting or unsettling to you, because you're going to see a lot of things that are very bizarre. Well, that to me was an open invitation, Brent, saying, "Yes, Joyce, walk through the wards." Absolutely, because you need to see this stuff. Well, I found it was Pilgrim State Hospital, and it was also Central Islip State Hospital. These were two very big mental institutions on Long Island, and my dad worked for both of them. So I got to be there a lot. And the most incredible thing that I saw, Brent, was people who were living past lifetimes. Their lifetimes had become, they flowed together. They did not have the separation between lifetimes, and they were experiencing a form of insanity because of that. Now, that may have happened because of the drugs that they used, or the hallucinogens, or shock treatments, or it could just happen because they were very mediumistic. You know, there are a number of things that break through the veil that separates the lifetimes. And these people who were institutionalized and who were, in many cases, dressing in period costumes, they allowed them to dress however they wished, in many cases, I think it has to do with the breaking through of the veil that's supposed to separate the lifetimes. And that's what I addressed in my book, the reason that we have the separation. And Yogananda said the veil is there for a reason and separated for a reason. So all the great teachers throughout history who have understood human consciousness have always said that. Now, I'm also a certified hypnotherapist, so I can go back into past lifetimes. And if people have fears that they need to overcome, or they don't understand why they're so afraid of heights, like I kind of am, you can find out that, sure as shooting, you were thrown off a very high mountain by some lover or somebody in a past lifetime, and you took a fall to your death. So now you're back with this person again, and you don't know why you don't want to go up to a cliff with him, but you know you're not going. So there's a lot going on, but under hypnosis, a lot of it comes out, and people start crying, and they're very upset, and you have to say, okay, release it now, let it go, and that's over. So that's just, we have, in many cases, Brent, just the traces of fears, and you don't understand why you're so afraid, and you have so many fears, but reincarnation explains phobias more than anything. Do you agree with that?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I find for somebody who, I know you talked about Yogananda, and he's one of my favorites as well, and talking about the veil, and I couldn't agree more. It is absolutely essential, because we would all be probably in, a psych ward if we did have all of those veils broken and all these filters that, are built in, and everything is just flooding in from all these lifetimes. Absolutely. It would be overwhelming. It's the way I always put it as well, is that isn't this life enough, for everyone? This one life is more than enough for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. We can't even figure out the answers to the questions in this lifetime, so absolutely.
One is more than enough.
Yeah. For someone, though, who is interested in finding out with more depth and finding out if there is something in past lives, what advice do you give them for, I guess, signposts or flags that will help guide them or find answers for them?
Well, I'm basically, I was born an astrologer, and I was born to a mother who was an astrologer. I'm not a good astrologer, though. I'm not a technical astrologer. I do off-the-cuff intuitive astrology mostly, because I believe before we're born, we're given what we would call the birth chart. And it's as if God is saying to us, look, this is the basic plan of your life. You're going to have about 20% free will, approximately. And you're going to have to make decisions and work through your destiny. But this birth chart basically tells you why you're here and where you're going and what your life lessons are. Then after that, you're on your own, and you better make the right decisions. Oh, you're going to make a few wrong ones here and there, and that's great, because your soul will be richer for it, and you will prosper by these quote-unquote mistakes that you make. Are they really mistakes? They're just life lessons. So what I would say, if people want to know why they're here, of course it's all laid out in the book, which I'm so appreciative that a.r.e. did that. And you can look it up. You can say, let's see now, why am I here? Oh, okay. And the greatest indication of life purpose is a little part of the chart that's called the North Node. It's North, as in north-south. node, N-O-D-E, and the south node, which is also in there, tells you what your prior experiences were in past lives and what you're supposed to be learning in this life. So it's all in there. And it took years and years to write this book, by the way. It's a consolidation of all that I've been doing for people privately and on the air. I'm going to say easily the last 20 years. So I said, this is ridiculous. Let me share this. So that's why I'm so happy that a.r.e. put it all in there. So all you have to do is just look up your birth date, and it's all in there. So it's easy.
Excellent. And astrology, we can talk a little bit about astrology, because I know this has to be a topic that our listeners really love to eat up. But there's a lot out there when it comes to astrology, and I can tell that you have your own unique perspective and your own unique approach on each of these topics that we've talked about thus far. But tell me about your unique approach to astrology. I know Cayce, one of the things that I really loved about his approach to astrology is unique in itself all across the board, but he talked about planetary sojourns, which to me was a bit of a new concept, where meaning in between physical earth incarnations, your soul will take journeys, sojourns he called it, to other planets where there are important lessons to be learned on a soul level as well. How do you feel about this aspect of the Cayce principles?
Most definitely. I mean, it can't just be on the Earth. We go to Pleiades. We go people would be amazed if they could actually see what the soul is capable of doing and what God allows us to do. There are dimensions and universes and planes and just so many experiences of life and beyond. It's not just here. I kind of scratch my head when people say, well, we're going to live here, and that's it. Once is enough, and then you're off, and that's it. Well, I think the universe is so vast that it wouldn't be possible, and people are so complicated. You just shove into this little body for a number of years, and that's it, and then you cross over. My husband passed away a little more than a year ago, so he immediately started coming back to me because we did this work together. He was a great support system, and we were a great team. So he immediately, because he was so enmeshed in metaphysics and the Cayce teachings and all, he immediately started teaching me and sharing with me what happens from his perspective after he crossed over. So he's having a fine time. He said, please don't be sad for me. This is amazing. He said, you cannot believe the dimensions and the dimensions and the dimensions. It's just infinity. It just goes on and on. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't even remember the question, Brent.
No worries. It did, absolutely. And it took it in other directions. That was great. Thank you. I want to talk about another topic, because you have so many topics that you touch on in this book, and you, of course, touch on in your radio show as well, and all your writings. So really, that's what I like about your writings, is they span a number of topics, which is great, because sometimes you'll have an author who really just finds their niche and that's it. They stay there. One of the other topics that you are known to write about is angel guides, and this is a big part of the personal life of Cayce, was the angels in his life. And of course, he had a Christian upbringing that very much built the filter in which he brought through his information. So I'm curious, what is your take on angelic guides? I know a lot of people out there are just kind of up in the air about it, and I think it has a lot to do with just that personal relationship. So what is your take on it?
What is my take as far as angels working with us?
Angel guides. What have you found? What have you found about angel guides? What could you tell our listeners that would give them some insight as to maybe somebody who is struggling to find a connection with any sort of angelic realm or angelic presence?
Right, that's a great question. Well, first I'll tell you what really ticks me off. Not a lot of things, just this one little thing. Oh, yeah, there's a second thing. The first thing that annoys me when people call in to any show that I'm doing, when they say, tell me about my future. No, we only have a certain number of minutes, so why don't you try to make your question a little more specific so we could possibly zero in so we don't have to talk about it. Right. Okay, that's my first. The second is, I love this. I get to talk about what annoys me. The second thing is that people say, now this is so almost sacrilegious, I feel bad that I'm saying this, but people say my child God forbid, died or my mother died and they became my angel. Okay, that really ticks me off because, number one, I don't think a physical person can become an angel. They can become angelic, and they can be part of the angel realm. But if you're in a physical body, I don't think you can become a pure light, which is what angels are. And they usually don't even have names. But they can be part of the angel or angelic realm. So that's kind of... that's not so bad that I have those two things that annoy me, right? I mean, annoy is a big word,
not
but...
bad at all.
But
yeah, for somebody who's looking to get more in touch, I guess, in their personal life,
more in touch.
who has
All right,
looking for that connection, what advice would you give?
That's great. Not only do we have many, many angels or pure light spirits working with us, I'm going to tell you about getting in touch with them, but first I wanted to just express my view on what's out there and what's around us and what's working with us. I believe we have one primary teacher or angel who goes with us from before birth to after and lifetime to lifetime. That person, it's not a person, that force, we'll call it a force because it may have been someone who has never been in the body, could be a pure angelic spirit. That angelic spirit never leaves our side. We are never alone. Even if, God forbid, we were to be buried like 10 feet underground or something terrible like that happened, or we were thrown into a cave, that angelic spirit never leaves our side. I've had near-death experiences where I was able to see that beautiful angelic spirit with me, and they usually don't manifest unless you're in terrible trouble, like dying. But you're never, ever alone, not even for a split second. They could say, well, why do accidents happen? Accidents happen because either they're supposed to. I don't believe in accidents at all. I believe if an accident occurs, it's because it's supposed to, or there's something that's essential, or a death or anything like that. Very, very little in the way of real accidents occurring, Brent. I don't know if you agree with that. But just to continue, I just wanted to wrap up what you asked me. So we have many of these invisible angelic spirits working with us for a variety of different purposes. Could be to inspire us, to write or to work, whatever it is. You have muses and all kinds of angels. And then you have the physical guides, who are, I have a lot of this in my books also. You have your doctor teachers, you have doorkeepers, you have just a variety of, usually about 6 or 7 spirits who have actually been in physical bodies. So they have the physical understanding of the problems and the difficulties of being on the earth and what challenges we have here. Like, what are green lights? What are red lights? You know, you're supposed to stop, you're supposed to go. They help us with all of the mundane issues like that. So, approximately, I'm giving 5 to 7 physical guides per person. They can change as your needs change throughout life. And then you have the invisible guides on top of that, the angels, the real angelic forces. So, did that answer the question or not?
Yeah, it did, absolutely. I guess the only part I would ask, maybe for our listeners, is what advice do you give somebody to kind of better get in touch with that? I understand that to acknowledge it is one thing, but to what sort of practices or what sort of, what advice would you give them? I think that's what everyone's looking for.
If I'm allowed to plug an earlier book, in my book, Calling All Angels, and also 7 Steps to Heaven, those 2 books really address how to get in contact with your higher forces or the guides and influences around us. And the best way to do it is through meditation and prayer. And you don't have to make a big deal about it. You could just sit by the beach and just kind of relax. Or sometimes if we're driving, I hate to say it because it's dangerous, but when you go in, like you're on a long drive and you go into that slightly altered state because the ride is so boring that, you're driving so far, that's meditation also. And any time where you're just kind of relaxing and allowing the energy to come through, that's meditation. And that's the greatest form of communication, where you're just allowing yourself to relax. And the conscious mind, which is so strong, so powerful, in many cases quite stupid, really, because it thinks it knows everything. The subconscious is really the genius, and that's way down, and you have to push the conscious mind aside and allow the brilliance of the superconscious mind, which is universal, to give us the information that we need. So you can do that through meditation. It's good if you start with a prayer first. You say, well, I would like this to be strictly of God and bring in the highest and the best that I can, and whatever I need at this time. And you always thank God or thank your angels before and after any kind of anything. It could be prayer, meditation, a job, work, whatever it is. Start the day with gratitude throughout the day, gratitude before you go to sleep, and that's the best advice I can give anyone. It's gratitude and listening carefully to what you're being told. And, what's so crazy, Brent, is that a lot of times we'll say to ourselves, that was a brilliant idea. I just had a genius idea. Chances are good it didn't come from you at all, but from your higher consciousness or from one of your guides. They said, oh, yeah, he got it. He realizes, So,
absolutely.
We're taking credit for such brilliance, and in most cases it's a combination of you and whatever you're receiving. Cayce certainly said that also.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. It's that idea of interconnection. And
yes.
Based on all the evidence is coming back showing that there is a level of interconnectivity that we're only just now starting to acknowledge. I think the metaphysical community and religion and spirituality, of course, as always, that's been their bread and butter. But I think I would say the rest of maybe society, the scientific community, or some of the more skeptic community, is starting to realize that there's something to this idea of interconnectivity. And then, it's fascinating. But I guess in saying that, I'm curious, with you hosting the radio show over the course of decades, how have you kind of seen the topics evolve? What you guys were talking about when you started in, I believe it was 89, Joyce? Was it roughly 89? When you started in 89 and where you're at now, still doing the show, how have you seen the guests and the topics evolve? Is it become more open-minded? Are you talking about totally different things? Are you talking about the same things over and over again? How has it been?
That's a two-part answer.
Yeah,
Great question with a two-part answer. Of course, the basic issues will never change. And, the world could be crumbling and things, God forbid, could be, just going really down the drain in a big hurry. And people are going to still say, well, where's my soulmate? Am I ever getting married? So those mundane questions never change. You're always going to have people wondering about their own karma, which is great, because that's, why am I here? You're supposed to be wondering, and you're supposed to be fulfilling your destiny while you're here. The second part of it is that yes, indeed, our consciousness has been raised. We have gone through higher evolvement. I do see, actually I started radio in 1981. I hate to say it, but it really is true. I started with Cablevision on Long Island, I believe, or it was Paragon TV. I don't even remember. It's such a long time ago. And then I started doing WGBB radio, also on Long Island, both in New York. And the questions were not as universal as they are now. They're not as brilliant as they are now. People are asking really challenging questions, like what you were just asking. People want to know more about the universality of our human expression. And I don't know if that's a good enough answer, but they're not as rooted in the mundane issues of jobs and cars and homes as they were. Mm-hmm. Now they're starting to say, well, can we really travel to other planets? Are there other planets? And what is that life actually like? So that certainly is changing.
That's exciting. That's cool. Very cool. And Joyce, for you personally, and I guess professionally as well, what about this process of being involved with these topics and, of course, putting it into practice and being of service and being available to people? What has you most inspired, and what keeps you going? What keeps that fire lit as you go through these decades of seeing things change, seeing everything around you totally evolving? What keeps that fire lit for you, and what has you most inspired as you kind of look forward into the future, knowing you're going to be doing this for years to come?
Well, thank you. I'm really a media. I almost said radio rat, but that's really the truth. I love media. Yeah. I'm a Gemini, but I'm also a double Gemini, which is really awful because it gives me just way too much to say. It's like, Geminis always have that mercurial energy that's never ending, and then I have Gemini rising as well. So I always have something to say that I hope and pray will be helpful to my fellow man, my fellow woman, and anyone who would care to listen. So I love, love, love television, radio, and writing, because the more you use your ability to express, the more God will give you. And God sees how hungry I am and how much I want to share before I'm taken off this planet. So I'm always looking, and if I go a day without learning something, without sharing something, I feel the day has been wasted pretty much. I have to feel I've learned something today, or I've shared something today, or I've done something pretty good for someone today, and I'm able to let them know that, you know what, life goes on, and also they shouldn't be afraid of death. I do a lot of work with people who are crossing over, getting ready to cross over, and people who have had near-death experiences, as I have, are in a great position to help those who are leaving, because you want to give them hope, and you want to say, you take their hand, and you say, don't be afraid. I wrote a poem in my 7 Steps to Heaven book called Don't Be Afraid, and also Reach Out, 2 poems in there that people really need to know about. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of death. Just go. And also the Reach Out poem, which I'm very, very happy the angels gave me, because it tells how you can reach out to people who have crossed over and how you can be there for them. But the most important thing is to not be afraid of death, to know that at the right time it's a glorious experience. You don't want to cross over, before you're supposed to go, which is called suicide. That's not a particularly great thing to do, but even that is not the punishing hell that people would make it out to be. It's an opportunity to come back and do it again, and don't go counter to what you're supposed to experience. So I'd have to say, I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm here to let people know that life goes on, and that there's so much to experience on both sides of the veil.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful message. Joyce, you have so many incredible messages. I'm curious, just because we're running out of time, so I want to make sure we get to fit in a couple last questions here. One I want to know is that the Cayce readings and kind of the community that built around Cayce enthusiasts, are big into the health tips. And I know you've been helping so many people for so many years. I'm curious, do you have any personal health tips, whether from the Cayce readings or just things that you've developed over the years? Little health tips, that maybe daily things that you do that's helped to give you longevity and health and happiness, more importantly, through that longevity.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's the best question of all. I wish I had a good answer. I don't know if Cayce wrote about it. This is crazy, but I'm just telling you what I'm inspired to say. I don't know if Cayce wrote about asparagus, but for people, this is not a cure, but in a way it is. I don't know if he wrote about asparagus, but people who have cancer should really look into the cure that comes with asparagus. It's a very, very simple cure, and it will be so, so helpful. There are so many. God has created cures out of all that he has put on the earth, and everything you need is right here. And I believe Edison said that God, it's all here for us, and it's also in the Bible, that everything you need is right here. Every cure, every desire that you might have. And I think that's the primary message from Cayce also. If you were to ask me some of my favorites, I love them all. I acknowledge the importance of natural foods, of course, not having prepackaged foods if you can possibly help it. Cayce loved coffee. He didn't even beat up coffee, which is great. He said coffee's okay. That's great.
Yeah, he did say no cream and sugar is what he said. Drinking it black.
Oh, no. I love cream and sugar.
He always had his little, his little Yeah, a little afterwards with a lot of his practices. But you're right. But I'm curious, I guess what I gather also is that prayer and meditation are two practices that are incredibly important to you every day. It sounds like that helps to keep you centered and also allows you to do what you do and be of service.
Yeah, service is really, the coin of spirit is service. And if you want to get closer to God and closer to yourself and closer to higher consciousness, do it through service to others. That's really significant. And don't talk about it, just do it. And don't expect reward, just do it. And if someone needs something, and I just wanted to share this other thing. I don't know if I have time, Brent, but
Of course, yeah, we got time, no worries.
Okay, good. I wanted to say that a lot of times, this is terrible, our spirit teachers will come to us on the street as homeless people looking for a hand up. And you say, well, which one is it? There are so many of them, especially in New York now. They're everywhere, and so many people are hurting. And you can't give money to everyone, but you have to use your intuition, and you have to use discernment. The key to development is also discernment, knowing what to do and when to do it and how to do it. So that's a very important message that I wanted to share with your audience, Brenton. Thank you for letting me share that, along with all of the above.
I think that's a wonderful. You brought up a really good point, and while we still have some time, I really want to talk about this because for me, all of when I see someone who's looking to find their path, when they've come to a point where the questions have become so much that they really just need to start pursuing these questions and finding out where they're coming from. The discernment is one of the first things that comes up, and it's a fear-based thing because they're afraid. They don't know how to do between what's good and what's bad, and it comes from, I think, that disconnection we've created with our intuition, which I think is something that we're really working to get back in touch with our intuition. We have people like yourself, thank goodness, are showing us a way to get back in tune with our own intuition. But it's really, people tell me I don't know, there's so much out there. And I think that's with the onset of technology and everything, it is definitely a problem that we have to face. But I guess absolutely, like for me, I don't always know what to tell people, because for me, discernment comes from intuition, and it comes from things like meditation and prayer, where you learn, you basically have that intuitive judgment, and you hone it. You hone it like you would any other skill. But what do you tell people when they say, there's so much out there, I don't know where to start?
Yeah, we're all suffering from overload, especially with computer technology. Yeah. And I have a real problem. I lose so much time just working with the technology of the computer. Right. I'm really in over my head with it. And it eats up your life, and that is really a crime, the fact that so much time is lost. That's bad. But I'm sorry, I don't remember what you asked because I wanted to mention it.
The question is, what do you tell people about how to best use the discernment, or how? I notice a lot of people come to me and they say, well, I don't know how to discern between what's good and what's bad out there. How do you point people in the right direction?
Oh, wow, that's an impossible question. I would say through growth and through the process of you asking and saying, God, I really need an answer. I would like to discern the truth from lack of truth. And just, I need more knowingness. I need to know what I'm actually doing. I need to know what's going on. Now, if you ask, God and his angels have an obligation to tell you and to inspire you and to give you that information. Sometimes you have to ask maybe more than once or a few times, but eventually you will get an answer. And you should have a notepad and a pen or something reliable by your bed. I recently, maybe about a year ago, I was given the name, a very, very difficult name of a spirit teacher I had never heard of before, and it was an impossible name for me to bring back into consciousness. I had a real problem with it, so my husband at that time helped me, and I was still in an altered state, and I asked him to write the name down, and he was able, he knew me so well, so he was able to get a pad and a paper, a pad and pen, and he wrote down Lobsang Rampa, whom I had never heard of before. But did you know Lobsang Rampa?
I do, yeah, familiar.
Yeah, well, he came to me for the first time. I actually went to him. I went to the Himalayas out of body, and I went to his lamasery, and was with him, and I said, I really would like to bring your name back. And I had a really heck of a time bringing it back. LOBSANG space RAMPA. I misspelled it, and I said to my husband, LOBSANGH. But I was able to still look it up on the web and find out just who he was. And I was amazed to find out that he was one of the greatest mystics of all time, and a great healer and a doctor, and he had a walk-in experience. He took over the body of a plumber, and like it just went on and on. He has like about 100 books to his credit, and it's all on his website. You can read them free of charge, and they, like Cayce, there's just so much information there.
Yes,
what a great
absolutely.
teacher. So I was very privileged to have experiences like that in my life and to share that. But if people wanted to go to his website, it's actually under Tuesday, lobsangrampa.org. And apparently they choose the name of the day that they were born on as their first name. So he's Tuesday, lobsangrampa.org. So I wanted to share that. So I'm sorry, do you love his work, or what do you think?
Yeah, I've always had a deep respect for the Eastern teachers. When you brought up Yogananda and the Rampas, and there's a few other lineages of lamas, Eastern lamas, and just great Eastern teachers, I've always had just a deep resonance with their teachings. Almost more so than some of the great Western teachers. So, yeah,
You're amazing. You're really amazing. I love your energy, Brent.
Thank you so much. Joyce, so I guess what I gathered from that is that when it comes to discernment, it's just really, the more you ask the questions and the more energy you put into it, the more the answers will come. So if you keep an open mind and you keep putting in more effort into it, you will find the universe will bring you exactly what you need, the angelic realm, whatever name or label you decide to put on that, it will be brought to you. Your intuition will bring it.
I believe that's true. And people say, well, gee, I've been asking for years, or my mother passed away 20 or 30 years ago. I've never seen her again. Well, it could be she's not available, or it could be that your energy is just not linking up properly or in the way that would open that door. So I don't really have an answer to that. I mean, some people simply do not. My mother passed away in 1976. She's just starting to come to me now. Whereas my dad was with me immediately, my husband was with me immediately. My mother and I were very close, but I haven't seen her for many years. So, it's so different with every, you could say, well, they're just somewhere else. They're doing something, and eventually, or it could be you don't remember. You're not able to have the memory that you need to bring it back to the physical.
Right.
So always so different.
That was a big part that came up in the Cayce readings during his lifetime, is that a lot of his past lives was not brought up to him until later, and he explained in the readings that this happens with most individuals, is that until your soul is ready, the remembrance is not going to come to you, because there's a bigger non-linear thing going on here. That we think of things that everything is, of course, that linearity, everything is A to B. So whenever we're ready, and we're not going to know necessarily when we're ready, things will come to us. That's what the Cayce reading said.
Yeah, so you said a very interesting word just now, which I've never heard before. Linearity? What did you say about lineage?
Yeah,
say that again.
Time being linear. So when you're on the soul level, you're no longer dealing with a linear time scale. So things are not happening one after the other. It's so we may think that things should happen at a certain time. When you hit a certain age, you'll get a certain understanding, or certain things will happen. But when it comes to the soul level, it's not working on our time frame. It's working on its own time frame. Or where soul operates on its own time frame for sure.
Yeah, but you said linearity, I think, which I had never heard before. I've heard of lineage.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
I don't know if it's proper English, but it worked for the conversation.
Yeah, but it really does, and it's a beautiful word, and you described it so well, and it should be part of our. Now it's a part of it because you said it. That's great, and it's so difficult to understand linearity. We'll call it that, or time framework, because people want, in readings, people want to know, well, when exactly am I going to meet my soulmate? Well, that's a really good question. And I wish I could really give you a good answer. But we can give you a ballpark, and pray to God that it's right. Cayce was fabulous. He said you have approximately 10 soulmates per life. I just love that. Because in my case, I have 9 more to go. I went through my first one.
That's beautiful. Love that. Well, Joyce, thank you so much. We're out of time, but I just And it had such a pleasure talking to you today. It's been so much fun, and what you're doing, the service that you bring to the world is so needed right now. So we're very lucky to have you as part of the a.r.e. community, and thank you so much. We look forward to this book. I'll make sure that we get all the details on exactly when it's coming out, and just
Brent,
thank
how
you.
much
Thank
do
you
I
for
love
giving us
you?
time.
How much do I love you in a.r.e. exactly? A great deal. Thank you very, very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Guess you have a great day. Thank you so much for being on Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. To purchase Joyce's wonderful new book, which is out now, you can visit our website at arecatalog.com. To learn more about Joyce or get in touch with her personally, you can visit her personal website at joycekeller.com. On behalf of everyone here at the Association for Research and Enlightenment, and of course, moretalk.tv, hope everyone has a beautiful week, and thank you so much for tuning into Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Remember, throughout the week, to be of service to others. Much love. And now it is time for the thought for the day today here on Reflections. And joining me for the thought for the day today is Board of Trustee member Dr. Bill Austin. Bill, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Brent. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, if you can go ahead and read the thought for the day today for our listeners that we chose from the Edgar Cayce readings.
I'd be happy to. This thought comes from reading 4047-2. The purpose in life, then, is not the gratifying of appetites, nor of any selfish desires, but it is that the entity, the soul, may make the earth, where the entity finds its consciousness, a better place in which to live. This is such a beautiful reading. The purpose in life. How many times have we said, oh, what's my purpose for being here? What's my purpose in life? What should I do with myself? Well, I think this says it all. Yes, we're here in this physical plane. We have physical needs, and we have to take care of those physical needs. But those needs are not our God. And the purpose of this life, no matter where we find ourselves, no matter what station of life we find ourselves, and that's a judgment call made on a very physical or conscious plane. But our purpose for being here is to make this place a better place in which to live. And how are we going to do that? Well, when I look at the Cayce readings, it talks about, number one, accepting that God is, accepting this law of love, and manifesting it by sharing the experience that we have with others. You can't give away what you don't have. So if you're not experiencing peace and happiness and joy on the inside, it's tough to give that away. But if the Cayce readings teach us how to go on the inside so we can tap into this divine source. And then we can manifest that by giving it away, no matter where we are, no matter what our predicament is. There's always someone next to us that needs a helping hand, that needs a soft, gentle word to pick them up. We need that. And if we listen, there's usually someone close by who's offering that to us. And we can even go beyond that. That person doesn't have to be physically there. This can be done in our daily prayers and meditations. The miracles that have occurred, with the prayer groups are just absolutely astounding. So our purpose is to make this a better place, and that's for others. And when we do that, we do it for ourselves. It's a beautiful reading.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This to me, as you touched on a lot, Bill, is about our personal karmic choices. That's what he's really talking about today. And in saying that, it's each day we are presented with a lot of opportunities to make decisions either based solely on our self-satisfying desires, or we can make different choices that are based on the consideration of all those who may potentially be affected by the outcome of our decisions. So,
Yes.
as we've said in the past, it's not something that, it's a process, it's an unfolding, it's enlightenment, it's love. These are these things that unfold. It's not something that we can, change overnight. But when we talk about karmic choices, whether we make choices based in our self-satisfying desires or in consideration of being of service to others, both these choices, whether we make one or the other, create karmic influence on everything around us and everything yet to come in our life. So whether we make the earth or just simply the environment that we're in immediately every day, whether we make it a better place to live in is truly up to us. And it's really determined by our intention and our interaction with all those around us. So we have to pay very close attention, pardon me, to our karmic choices, because that's what Casey's talking about, is that we're really given the opportunity to allow God to manifest, and we have to recognize it as such, and make the right choices according to that.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Bill, thank you as always for joining me for the thought for the day. It's always an honor to have you on the show, and I always appreciate listening to your thoughts. So thank you.
Oh, it's a great pleasure for me. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Brent. It's been
Of
wonderful.
course.
Have a
Wonderful. Wow.
salubrious day today.
Absolutely. Have a great week, Bill.